Hello and welcome back to How to Build a Stronger Reader Today mini series. I am Shauntelle Modeste, former classroom teacher and reading specialist turned tutoring business owner. And I have recently launched my Ivy League-ish Reading Academy online, and I'm so excited to have you here for tip number 3 in this mini series for you, parents. This is all about you and helping your child strengthen their literacy and reading and writing skills. Let's just dive right into it, and let's talk about tip number 3. Now, tip number 3 is to how to grow your vocabulary. And there's a statistic that kind of shows that 70% of the reading problems and struggles and reading comprehension are due to a lack of vocabulary words. 70% of the problems could be solved if your child is new and was exposed to more vocabulary words. Because guess what? That's all reading is words and the knowledge and the definition of those words. So we're going to dive into 4 ways that you can help your child retain and acquire vocabulary words for them. So tip number one is basically, guess what? Read with your child. Read extensively, wide reading, multiple genre reading, just reading out of their comfort zone. So it's pretty simple, just reading. Because guess what? When you read words, you are exposing your child to words that they won't know or hear in regular conversation, words that they won't hear on the radio, on a video game, or wherever, you and your child are, receiving information and knowledge. So reading is pretty simple. And you always know, we know that we should read, but reading is one way to build vocabulary words. Okay? I was thinking about my little girl. She at night, she's 11, and so she hates to go to bed at night. She thinks she's missing out on something, and wondering what my husband and I, what are we up to? What are we doing? And so we just learned the word snappishly from a chapter book that we're reading together. And so guess what? That word came up this one particular night. I was trying to get her in bed, and she was just dragging her feet and didn't want to go. And so in my mother tone, I kind of just told her, it's time for you to go to sleep. In my mother voice, okay, it's time. And so she used the word back on me. She said, Mommy, why are you being so snappishly toward me? And snappishly just means to snap real quick and, have an aggressive tone and, kind of lay down, okay, I mean business right now. And so she was able to use that context around that situation and use the word snappishly. So I just immediately thought about, man, the power of words, how she was able to retrieve that word. But had I not exposed that to her, that wouldn't have been a word that's a part of her lexicon, her knowledge of words. So just a quick story about how, once you teach your children, they're exposed, you'll hear it again. They may read it again somewhere. And so we need to expose and give our children that opportunity to have that information already stored in their memory because it's there. So number one, that's one way and when you actually read words, read words in books, it's known as intentional learning. Because you're not really just teaching the words, so just accidental learning. They are learning the words and just by, mere reading. And that leads me to number 2. Number 2 is when this child and student is learning those words on purpose. They are actually learning those words. They have a targeted list of words. You may see words that come home from school, vocabulary words they have to define, and maybe some kind of template that helps them recall those words. So this is more when it's more purposeful. You are providing them a list. And this is something that I do provide in my Ivy League reading program. Every week we'll have 10 to 15 words based centered around the chapter book that we're reading for that particular month. So every week we're learning words, and those students will have to devote those words to memory to help them retain those words so they can start building that vocabulary that I know that they need to be successful readers. Okay, so, just kind of review. The first thing, you just need to just read expose your child to new words by just reading. And then the second, to explicitly teach them words, a list of words. You may be reading a book at home with your child and you notice there's a word that you know they don't know, something new. Stop, have them write that down, expose it to them, use flashcards, do whatever you think you know best for your child to help them remember those words. So just focus on those, highlight that as they're reading, like, that's an interesting word. What does that mean? And have them write it down so it will be a part of their memory, long-term memory. Okay, then tip number 3 of how to grow your vocabulary is to help your child learn word parts. Okay, so this is something I've always taught, especially particularly my early when I taught grades as early as 1st and 2nd. And this never stops, but particularly kind of start introducing word parts. You know, your prefixes, the root word, the suffixes, parts of a word. So if, for example, if they see the letters RE, the prefix RE in front of a word, hopefully they've been exposed to know that RE means to do something again, to repeat, to do it again, to retake, to restep, whatever that word might be. So if they know that RE means to do again, they kind of, you know, half the battle is over because they know a part of the word. And so then you learn the suffix, the endings, which is the ly, ing, ed letters of a word. And then the root is the part of the word that stands alone. So teaching word parts is another way to grow your child's vocabulary. And the last tip is to actually just use what's known as context clues when reading. This is something that many reading teachers and teachers always have taught because you don't have time. I mean, another way is to go to the dictionary, to actually Google and look up a word. If you have an old-fashioned, if you have a dictionary at home, a physical copy of a dictionary at home, which I do have dictionaries and still kind of make reference to, you can look up the words and find and define those meanings. But we know if your child is reading and they're into a good story, into a good book, into a good chapter book, you don't want them to interrupt their thinking and their train of thought to go and research what a word means. Now, maybe something would be great to do after your child reads, but in the moment, in the time that they're reading, at that moment, they need to have another way to understand what that word is. And so that's where using context around that word comes into play. And context just means that, okay, I don't know this, this huge word. I'm thinking about a word meticulously. I don't know what that word means, but based on the background of the story and what's happening with the characters, what's happening in this particular paragraph or this particular sentence, I get it. So it's just enough for them to get past that word they don't know and helps them move on to continue to finish up whatever their reading assignment is for the moment. And so this is something I've always taught. I've taught my elementary students, using context clues. I've taught my college students. And so it's just one of many ways that students can acquire and retain vocabulary. So these are just short 4 ways that you can be thinking about and consider on, how to grow your child's vocabulary. Because remember I said earlier, 70% of reading problems stem and go back to the lack of words and the meanings and those definitions. So I hope this tip helped you, at least help you kind of think about when you're reading, things to highlight and ways to help your child. And games, word Scrabble. There's so many different games out there, board games that could help also in a fun way because we all want, to do something fun. Kids love games. Kids love competitiveness. And so there's different games out there that I would often use, board games or just different games that I have at my, my disposal, part of my resource tool to help them with new vocabulary words. So this is tip number 3, how to grow your vocabulary for your child. And I am Shauntelle Modeste. And once again, these are all things that I will be doing and teaching and providing within my Ivy Leagueish Reading Academy program that is now launched for you to access if you're interested in all of this. So I hope everything is going well, and I will see you next for tip number 4. Thank you and have a great, wonderful day. Bye-bye.